Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. Today's show is presented by Panda Subs. Panda Subs is owned and operated by a diehard Raider fan. And if you use code FIREJOSH, you're going to save 25% off at pandasubs.com. I recommend their protein. They just released 2 awesome new flavors that I know you guys are going to love. So coming up here on today's show is my 5-step plan on how to fix the Las Vegas Raiders before the NFL trade deadline. If you don't know when the deadline is, it's on October 31st. Spooky Halloween, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Jeremy Chuggs and I, we're going to be live leading up to the NFL deadline. Raiders play Monday Night Football next day. NFL trade deadline. We're going to be live here, so make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're watching in case the Raiders decide to make a trade. The first thing that the Raiders have to do to fix themselves, you need to fire Josh McDaniels. I know some of you are like, holy shit, Mitch, I never would have guessed that that's what you were going to say. Yes, you need to fix this team. How do you do it? You start off by firing the guy who's the head coach, and you continue to make this ship try to run as best as possible. Let's face it, the Raiders' offense, it's offensive. I mean, if this was back in 2020 during cancel culture time, this Raiders' offense would have been canceled because of how offensive it is. I mean, look at these numbers here. This is disgusting. Giveaways, last. Rushing yards per game, last. Passing yards per game, 20th. I mean, am I looking at Derek Carr's defenses with the Raiders since 2014 where nothing's in the top 20? This is embarrassing, especially when you consider the fact of how much money was spent on the offense this season. And when you consider the fact that you have an offensive guru as your head coach. Here's the other part. It's been bad this season. It was also bad to end last season. The Raiders have failed to score 20 points in 9 of their last 10 games. The only time that the Raiders scored more than 20 points was with, guess who at QB? Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham was the last Raiders quarterback to put up 20 points with Josh McDaniels' system. It has been absolutely positively a joke, and that's what you need to do. Step number 2 on how to fix the Raiders. Fire Josh McDaniels. You're going to see a trend on today's show. The Raiders haven't gotten better. They have gotten worse since hiring the clown. They have. Back in 2021, they were 10-7. They made a playoff push. And yeah, maybe they weren't exactly a playoff team. They were 6-7, won 4 games in a row, got in. But you know what? They got in. Since hiring McDaniels, the Raiders are 9-15. Under Rich Bisaccia, they were 7-5. This team does not play for McDaniels. And you can say what you want, but I've watched this team long enough. And if you think that this team plays for McDaniels, you are lying to yourself. Let's go to step number 3 on my plan here on how to fix the Las Vegas Raiders. Step number 1, fire Josh McDaniels. Step number 2, fire Josh McDaniels. Step number 3, you fire Josh McDaniels. McDaniels has made the Raiders locker room divided. I reported on Monday that I talked to multiple Raiders players, and every quote that is in this video that you're about to see up here on screen, and I told you, every quote in this video is from a Raiders player. Cold hard fact for Just Win Babies. Now, I saw Hondo Carpenter reported that the player that he talked to said that it isn't divided. That's fine. I'm going to read the smoke. I'm going to read what people told me, Raiders players told me. They're not happy right now. You saw Devontae Adams, after a win, leave angrily from the Raiders locker room. You saw Marcus Peters a few weeks ago like a post about firing Josh McDaniels. If you don't think that there are Raiders players in that locker room that do not like this coaching staff and do not believe in this clown, then you are lying to yourself. It's another reason to fire the clown. And here's another reason to hit that subscribe button. Once the Raiders smarten up and finally do realize, man, we're just moving backwards with this guy, and they fire him, 24-hour live show here on the Raiders Report. Jeremy even looked at me today and he goes, Mitch, what are you going to do for the show? I don't have a plan. I'm just going to celebrate. I'm going to get wild. It's going to be something like you've never seen before. If the Raiders fire Josh McDaniels, 24-hour live stream here on the Raiders Report, I want you to buckle up and I want you to watch. Let's go to the 4th step here on my plan to fix the Raiders. You guessed it. Fire Josh McDaniels. Now, why should this one? McDaniels can't make adjustments, and he always gets out-coached. Like, when you think about what he did in Denver, it didn't work in Denver. All right, so let's try to do exactly what I did in Denver. to get myself fired, and now I'm going to try to do it with the Raiders. Shit, it's not working. Okay, well, what about the in-game adjustments? You see it. First quarter, the Raiders do something. After that, they don't do much. When you think about the entire McDaniels Raiders tenure in 24 games, it's laughable. This season, luckily, we haven't blown any 10-point leads. Do you know why? We haven't had any. 5 double-digit lead blown last season. The amount of games that this Raiders team blew last year because they couldn't make adjustments in the second half hasn't changed. The Raiders lost to Jeff Saturday when he was coaching high school football a few days, and the Colts go, you know what? We're just going to bring in Jeff Saturday, and he outcoached Josh McDaniels. Then, this past week, you lost to a D2 quarterback in Tyson Bagent. That can't happen. It's only the second time in the last 50 years that a Division II quarterback won. Then you lost to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield wasn't even on an NFL team. The Rams signed him, give him 3 days practice, and you blow a 16-3 lead to Baker Mayfield. And now you got this. Raiders players calling him out. I'm not ever going to tell you the players that told me the quotes that they did unless the players tell me that I can, which I'm kind of hoping ends up happening once the Raiders finally move on from McDaniels. But when you have all these things happening, and the same shit happened when he was with the Broncos. Wake up, McDaniels. Wake up, Mark Davis. What you're doing, it's not working. And then my final step, and the most important step to my plan here to fix the Las Vegas Raiders. Fire Josh McDaniels. You need to get rid of this guy. He can't get it done. He's never going to get it done. What he did in Denver, he's doing right now to the Raiders. McDaniels has one plan, and that plan is whatever he draws up. And even if that plan doesn't work, he continues to go with it. He's got such a big God complex. He's got such I'm the smartest guy in the room complex that even when it's not working, he just continues to do it. That is the definition of insanity. Josh McDaniels must be clinically insane because he just keeps doing it over and over and over again. The bottom line is this, and this is why I made this show. If Josh McDaniels is the head coach, the Raiders will never be successful. I said it 2.5 years ago. I made a video on it last year about why Mark Davis shouldn't trust Josh McDaniels to fix the Raiders. And anybody out there that thought that McDaniels was going to be a good coach, I hate to tell you, you probably didn't watch this show. But that's the plan. The plan is this. You can't start a plan. You literally can't. You can't try to fix the Raiders unless you get rid of this guy. This is the number one step. Now, I know there's some people out there like, Mitch, did you really do a 5-step plan and all 5 are fire McDaniels? Yes, I did. However, I have some real steps coming up here on the show because I did want to be able to provide you guys with some other types of content, but that's the plan. The first thing that you need to do if you plan to fix the Las Vegas Raiders, it's this. You need to move on from them. And if you want the Raiders to fire McDaniels, I want you to click that like button right now. Speaking of something that you're also going to like, remember, today's show is presented by Panda Subs. And Panda Subs, man, always trying to hook up the nation. Make sure that you use code FIREJOSH at checkout for 25% off at pandasubs.com. And I'll tell you what, man, they got some brand new protein that is going to knock your socks off. And if you don't got socks on, it might knock your pants off. And if you don't got pants on, well, now this is kind of weird, isn't it? But what I want you to try is they're brand new. It's like this mint chocolate chip protein. What it reminds me of is my childhood. My mom used to always take me to this, it's called Heaters Drive-In. Shout out to Heaters Drive-In. And I used to get this ice cream cone because I'm a big mint chocolate chip fan, especially in the summer. But it's got real cookie chunks in it. It's insane. And Jeremy, I just got this next one that you're about to show, the Cinnamon Toast Crunch one. It tastes like the cereal, like the milk from Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then there's also chunks of it in there. I put this one in my Ninja Creamy. Dude, if you got a Creamy at home, I'm pretty sure Panda Subs protein was made for it. But they have a lot of amazing protein. They have the fruity, it tastes like the Fruity Pebbles milk from cereal. They have vanilla ice cream, chocolate. They also have ones where it's freeze-dried strawberries inside. I mean, the amount of protein that you can get, it's 140 calories, no sugar added, no artificial colors, no amino spiking, digestive enzymes. There's a probiotic blend, grass-fed collagen, multi-stage protein. It's protein that's great to use after a workout. It's also going to curb your appetite. And maybe one of the most important things why I love it, it's owned by a Raider fan. I support And there's a reason why Panda Subs has been a sponsor here on the show for over 2 years now. So shout out to them for always trying to hook up the nation. And if anybody wants to get started with Panda, the link's going to be available to you guys down in the comments, down in the description. Hopefully you don't remember to use that code FIREJOSH. All right, coming up here, 3 other things that the Raiders should do to actually try to fix what the hell's going on here before the NFL trade deadline. The first thing is this. I know that there's a little bit of a quarterback conundrum going on right now, and they don't know if it's going to be Jimmy G. I don't think it's going to be Brian Hoyer again. Here's what you can do. You can start Aidan O'Connell. I've watched Jimmy Garoppolo. I've watched Brian Hoyer. From an eye test standpoint, Aidan gives you the best chance to win because he's the guy that I believe is the only one that can help you use the entire field. I will admit that none of these quarterbacks give me a lot of confidence right now, and I'm willing to roll with the punches with Aidan because he is a rookie, and I know that Garoppolo isn't going to ever be the future. I know that Brian Hoyer is never going to be the future. But the quarterbacks, that's what Josh McDaniels is supposed to do. That's what Josh is supposed to know, and that's been by far the biggest issue of this team. So not only is your head coach bad at coaching, he's also bad at picking out a QB, which last time I checked, probably not the best thing, especially if you want the Raiders to draft a quarterback next season. So my question to you is this. Who should the Raiders start? Do you go with Garoppolo? Do you go with Hoyer? Or do you go with the rookie and Aidan O'Connell? I'm going to spam my AOC, and I think all the smart people out there should also spam AOC. Let's go to the next thing to fix the Raiders. You got to add a defensive tackle or an edge rusher. You got to add some help there to the defensive line. And if it was up to me, I would add both. I would add a defensive tackle, and I would add an edge. Now, first off, you can potentially go out and trade for somebody before the deadline, which that should be plan A. Plan A should be, all right, how can I go out and how can I trade for a player that makes my defense better right away? Now, if it was up to me, here would be my Raiders trade targets from a defensive end, defensive line standpoint. If you want to go a little bit cheaper, you can look at Caleb Von Chasen, Josh Uche, Milton Williams are probably some of the cheaper options. Carl Lawson could be a little bit cheaper, and then this is where it gets expensive. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Brian Burns, Daniil Hunter. Leonard Williams is kind of a tweener based on some of the reports that I've seen and heard from Giants insiders out there. And then Jonathan Allen, clearly not happy. I mean, there are 3 Washington Commanders on this list. If I'm the Raiders, I call up the Commanders right now. And if you're like, you know what, we couldn't trade for any of these guys because the reports are that the Raiders don't want to give up too much, which that's a good report. Free agents to target. If you want to go from an edge rusher standpoint, I'm looking at Melvin Ingram, Carlos Dunlap, Robert Quinn are probably the top 3 edges out there that fit this defense. And then from the defensive tackle standpoint, Ndamukong Suh, Akeem Hicks, and I'm just going to call him Matt because I can never pronounce his last name right. Let's now go to the third step on how to actually fix the Raiders. You need to trade your assets that you don't use. One of the things that drives me nuts is imagine you're just sitting on money. You're just sitting on draft capital. If you're not going to play Hunter Renfrow, then trade him. Get something for him. I'd rather get a 6th and a 7th. I'd rather get a 7th-round pick than you not playing Hunter Renfrow at all because I know right now Renfrow is frustrated. Renfrow is a player that's not happy with what's going on because he feels like no matter what he does, it doesn't matter because he's not one of Josh McDaniels' favorites. I'm also going to say this. Renfrow was not one of the quotes that I got. I kind of realized that it might have sounded like that. None of those quotes that I gave you guys yesterday or a few days ago are from Hunter Renfrow. But if you're not going to use certain players like Brandon Bolden, why the hell is he on this team? There are so many players on this team that I sit here and I go, why the hell is he on this team? Trade away Brandon Bolden. You save $2-something million. Trade away Hunter Renfrow. Get something. If you're not going to play certain guys and you only want them on the team because they fit the Josh McDaniels way, put a clipboard in their hand. Make them a coach. Give them a headset. Don't make them a player. We need to make this team better. We're 3-4 right now. Got to make something happen. I'm sick and tired of you sitting on your assets, Josh McDaniels. Now, that's all we got. Again, that's my step plan here. Remember, if we're trying to get McDaniels fired, we need to get loud together as a nation. So if you enjoyed the show, don't be afraid to share it on social media. Don't be afraid to tag me at Mitchell Renz 365. And if the Raiders, when the Raiders finally smarten up and fire Josh McDaniels, we're going to be live here 24 straight hours. So make sure you're chilling here with Jeremy Chuggs and I. It's going to be a hell of a ride.